Hello, everybody. This is Reggie, also known as William Cunningham, of My Hope in Marriage at myhopeinmarriage.com. The website is designed to provide resources to help people in their marriage to have a happy and fulfilling marriage. That's what it's all about. And I remember when I first got married, I didn't know how to be married. I just knew I wanted to get married, but then I realized that there was a lot that I didn't know. And most everything else, if we want to do something, we learn it. If you want to, get into a particular business, what do? You might take some courses or what have you. But in marriage, you just kind of jump into it. Now, there are um, marriage, premarital counseling. Churches have premarital counseling and so forth. But I found from my experiences only, that they have been inadequate. They tend to be quite fluffy, okay? But when the rubber meets the road is after the I do's and you're home alone. And as time goes on, things happen. One of the things that happens is a phenomenon that I didn't realize happens a lot based on the responses. And if you go online and research this, you'll find that many, many men have the issue or are dealing with the issue of being rejected by their wives. Now, what do I mean by being rejected by a wife? How is a man rejected by his wife? Well, it's not so much that she just rejects him, so to speak. I don't want you anymore. We're not really talking about that, even though that may happen. I'm talking about the situation where the wife does certain things that is interpreted by the husband as being rejected. All right? And that's what we're going to talk about. How women reject their husbands because they may not even know they're doing it. And what are the consequences of wives rejecting their husbands? That's what we're really talking about. That's what this article is about. The consequences of wives rejecting their husbands. All right. And I have my paper. I just printed out the article that you can find on myhopeinmarriage.com, www.myhopeinmarriage.com. And just you'll probably see it there because it's a featured article. It gets a lot of traffic. I mean, a lot of traffic, and you can see from the number of comments that people really are finding this thing. And I didn't realize how much of a problem this is in marriages. So anyway, I have my little notes here, and I'm going to briefly go over the article, the content, just to give you some information. But I would encourage you to go to the website and read the article in full. And for the ladies, for the wives, there is a complimentary article or a converse article, vice versa article of the consequences of husbands rejecting their wives. All right. So we're only dealing with the husband side, but it goes both ways. Husbands do reject their wives in any number of ways, and wives reject their husbands. In this episode, I am only dealing with the consequences of wives rejecting their husbands. All right. So, with that said, what are some ways that a wife can reject her husband? How does she reject her husband? Now, again, I'm not saying I don't want you anymore. I'm not talking about that just direct, even though that's possible. But there's subtle things that a wife can do that might be interpreted by her husband as rejection. All right. The first way that she may reject her husband or her husband may perceive her as rejecting him is if she disrespects him, if she does not respect him. Of course, for a guy, it's very important to be respected. I guess, for any human being, you want respect. But for a man in his own household, that's very, very critical. So a wife may disrespect her husband in any number of ways. Now, I don't want to get into how she can disrespect her husband, but she can disrespect her husband by talking, you know, badly about him in public amongst friends, things like that, and that's not good. Okay, so the husband may interpret that disrespect, continued disrespect. We're talking about consistent action, not. I'm not talking about if, let's say, for example, as far as rejection, I'm not talking about the husband comes home and he wants to have sex and the wife doesn't because she has a splitting headache or whatever, and she refuses or avoids having sex. I'm not talking about that. That's a one-time situation. All right, I'm talking about if it's consistent. This consistent things, consistent rejection. All right, that's very, very important to understand that. Okay, so one way that a wife can reject her husband is by disrespecting him. Another way that she can disrespect her husband, or excuse me, a way she can reject her husband is refusing to have sex with him. Now, I don't need to tell you you probably don't know how important sex is to a man, but you know what I found? It's important to women too. Of course it is. I mean, come on. It's just that we perceive it, we look at it from different perspective. For a guy, sex with his wife is a way that he emotionally connects with her, and he gives and receives love from her. So if she refuses that, all right, then it's like she's refusing to be emotionally connected to him. She's refusing to love him. All right? And so he may take that as being rejection. And if she consistently avoids sex with him, then he's going to start thinking, what's up? Was something wrong with me? Or, you don't love me or something? What's going on? So that's very, very important. That's another way that a wife can reject her husband, whether she realizes it or not. Sometimes a woman doesn't realize that she's rejecting her husband, or rather, more precisely, her husband is interpreting her action as rejection. All right. Another way that a wife can reject her husband is when she prioritizes the children above her husband. Now, this is a big one. This is a big one. It really prioritize anything above her husband as far as your normal everyday life. But in particular, when a woman prioritizes the children, she goes out of her way to care for those children. She goes out of her way to, I don't know, help them with their homework. She goes out of her way to, do whatever for them, to cook separate meals for them, which you shouldn't do. She goes out of her way to pamper, to take care of her children, but she doesn't give time to her husband. That's really bad. I can talk for a long time about the problems with that. Not that you should neglect your children, but you should not neglect your husband. You got married because you wanted to be one. All right. Children is a byproduct of that. So the first priority, besides your relationship with God, your first priority is with each other, because you're supposed to be one. But if you're going to flip out and go prioritize something else, you're breaking up the union. All right. And over a period of time, rejection after rejection after rejection after rejection, the guy's going to start going someplace bad in his mind, and it's not going to be conducive to a happy marriage. Okay? All right. Another way that a husband may interpret an act of rejection from her wife is when she refuses to initiate sex, when she doesn't initiate sex. And we already said that, if she refuses to have sex, but let's say she doesn't have a problem having sex, but as long as he initiates. Now, if he's always initiating and she never initiates, then the guy's going to start thinking, what, is she doesn't want to, I'm not desirable, or she don't want me, or is she just accommodating me? You know what I'm saying? So we got to be real careful there, wives. Initiate sex. It's very important to the man. And I'm sure sex is important. We know sex is important to women too. I'm not saying that it's not. But right now we're just talking about the man's perspective, the man's side of the equation, okay? We have another article and video for the women's side as best as I can, all right? And I've asked over and over and over if women would provide some input. Tell me your input. And I did get some with this particular article from women. All right, anyway, another way that a woman may I keep saying disrespect, another way that she may reject her husband is when she doesn't initiate intimate conversations. Now, I'm not talking about let's talk about church service or let's talk about the political environment or anything like that. I'm talking about initiating a conversation with your husband where it is about the both of you, your goals, maybe an issue that you're having, maybe a problem that you see, or maybe just, whatever, just something that's intimate, intimate, not business, not, okay, what bill are we going to, no, intimate. You want to try to get into each other's head and so forth and so on. All right. And it's good when the woman initiates that. All right. And of course, the man should initiate it too. Both of you should initiate intimate conversation. But again, we're just talking about the man's side. So the husband would love for the woman or his wife to initiate intimate conversation. Now, it might take a while to pull stuff out of a guy because I can tell you, I'm a guy, so I'm thinking, I'm constantly thinking, where's this going? What is she doing? Just today, my wife asked me, we watched a video, a traveling Robert, and he did a video of Florida, and she asked me, what did I feel about it? And I'm like, what did I feel about it? Feel? I watched the video. What do you mean, feel? And she's like, I mean, what? I said, well, I wished I was there. Well, yeah, that's what I mean. I wished I was there. I would have loved, and I just went down a line of the things that I was thinking. Okay. All right. Anyway, so that's the thing. Initiate those conversations. Get into each other intimately, besides sex, including sex, but in addition to that, learn each other. All right. Another thing that a wife can do to make her husband think that she's rejecting him is that she does not engage her husband. Oh, this is a big one, ladies and gentlemen. She doesn't engage. When I say engage, if the husband brings something up, don't just be like, uh-huh, uh-huh, all right, uh-huh, and you're just playing with the kids, uh-huh. Engage. Lock on. What is he doing? What's he talking about? What's going on? Engage. There are many ways to engage with your husband. Mostly it may be conversation, but engage. Get involved in his life. It's you may say, well, of course you get involved with his life. You're married. No, 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 no. Many times people live in the same house, but they live separate lives. She has her job and he has his job. They become co-workers in Household Incorporated. She washes the dishes and washes the clothes. He vacuums and cleans or whatever the case may be. But they're separate. Somebody pays the bills. The kids get taken care of. The mortgage and the bills get paid. But they're not really, together. They're just functionally together, but not intimately together. So we need that engagement, the two people engaging each other. All right, and that's very important. And a husband, if the wife doesn't engage with him, doesn't get involved with him, then he's going to begin to feel rejected. She's not interested in me, whatever. Okay, so that's very important. Now, another thing that she can do is she doesn't make time for her husband, and we kind of talked about that before. It's amazing how we can make time for everything else, but people tend not to put time into their marriage. Every week or whatever, based on your relationship, you should have like a date night. You should go on vacation somewhere together, away from the kids. You should spend time together. And when the wife doesn't put any effort into doing that, the husband is, of course, going to start thinking, well, she doesn't want to spend time with me. You know what? Yeah. All right. Okay. Another one is she's always in social media, and this goes into what we were just saying. She's, can sit there all day and whatever, and spend a lot of time with social media, reading magazines, talking to her girlfriends, or whatever, but not actually take the time, make the time to mark off the time to spend with her husband. And I remember it goes both ways. The husband has to do the same thing, but again, we're talking from the husband's perspective, all right? And I'm a husband, and I can tell you these things are important. Some more important than others, but they're important, all right? No person wants to feel as though they're being taken advantage of. There's no personal connection, especially in a marriage. You would expect there to be a personal connection, and when either the husband or the wife starts to think that there is no personal connection, then you're going to have problems. Okay, you're going to have problems. All right. What else we got? All right. This is a big one. He may feel rejected if she does not purposely educate herself, or she does not purposely work on the marriage. That assumes that he is. All right. Now, like I said, lots of people get married and they don't know what it means to be married. They don't know how to make a marriage work. You just got these two people, different cultures, and you slam them together with the I do. And then you send them off. And they're supposed to live happily ever after. A lot of people say that, love, you get married because you love each other. Wrong answer. Okay? You don't marry someone just because you love them. Love will fade. I have a free ebook called What Happens to Love in Marriage. I recommend you get it. I recommend you get that ebook. And all you have to do is give me your name and email address, and you'll get sent the ebook, of course. You'll join my list. And I won't spam you or anything like that. Okay, but anyway, and that's at the time of this video, because it might change. But that ebook will always be available somehow on my website, myhopeandmarriage.com. All right, another way that a wife may reject her husband is she doesn't listen to him. Oh my God, I can't tell you how important that one is to a guy. And that is very much related to respect. When he tells her something, he says something because he sees that there's danger or this could be a problem, so he says something, and she reacts belligerently. She reacts badly, for lack of a better word. She reacts in a way that she's not only devaluing what he says, but it's like, how dare you? Who do you think you are to tell me that I should do such and such and such and such? All right. And of course, a man in general is going to get upset if you because that's a mode of disrespect when you don't listen to your husband. So he's going to say, you're rejecting me. I'm just trying to help. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to help. You keep doing that, and I see one day that's something's going to happen. All right. Okay. She doesn't bond with her husband. That's a general thing, because all of these have something to do with a way of bonding, but she doesn't particularly bond with her husband. For example, you can bond with your husband by, working out with him. You can bond with your husband just by hanging out with him, doing projects together, offering to help him if he's doing something or whatever, just getting involved in his life. That's how you bond with someone. You get involved in their life. You interact with each other. You engage each other. And without that, the husband is going to, again, think, she doesn't want to get involved with me. She doesn't, care about anything I do. You know what I'm saying? So that's very, very important. Now, another thing, guys, you have to be sensitive to is that, you may interpret something that your wife is doing as rejection, but at the same time, it may not be her rejecting you. It could be that she's responding to your behavior. Maybe you're not treating her right. Maybe she's interpreting something you're doing as negatively. All right, so you got to consider those behavior responses, and that's why communications is so important in the marriage, because communication, when you guys talk to each other intimately, these type of stuff will be discovered, and you can then resolve them. All right. Now, some other considerations that you can think of, some other considerations for your wife rejecting you is something that I think is very, very important. Because, like I said, she may not be intentionally rejecting you, she may be responding to you, or it could be something else that you're just totally not aware of. For example, she might be protecting herself. Maybe she had bad experiences with men in the past, so she just have this disposition of not trusting men, or whatever. She may have opened up to you, and she fell in love with you, married you. I mean, come on, she married you. But at the same time, she just got this thing inside of her. She just doesn't trust men. Okay? All right. She has no interest in sex, and that is a very interesting one. All right? It is possible. There are people that have no interest in sex, they just don't. And so it's not that she's rejecting you, it's just that she's just not interested. Not that she won't do it per se, but she's just not interested. Okay. Another time she was taught that sex is bad. You can have the religious people that, I remember when I was a kid, I think we were told that, or I don't know if it was as a kid, but I remember hearing in a church that, or a teaching, what have you, that the original sin was Adam and Eve having sex with each other. Really? Okay. But, if you get caught up in that kind of stuff and you grow up with that mentality, then you get married and your husband wants to have sex and you're thinking it's a sin. You know what I'm saying? Okay. All right. So, what are the consequences of wives rejecting their husband? Well, for one thing, right away, love and affection is going to go. It's going to diminish. Romantic love itself begins to diminish anyway, unless you are aware of what happens to love in marriage. Get my free ebook, and you do something about it to counter it, to keep it alive. But anyway, if you are rejecting your husband, then guess what? He's going to begin to fall out of love with you, period. All right? Not saying that he will leave you or anything like that, but he's going to start falling out of love. He's not going to have the same feelings about you as he once did because you keep rejecting him, and that's a negative thing. All right? Oh, you've got to get that ebook. What happens to love in marriage? Get that, because I go into that kind of stuff, the different love languages and things. Oh, get that book. Okay, anyway. Loss of friendship. How can you be friends if you keep rejecting him? He's not going to want to be your friend. He's going to think you're not his. So you're going to lose the friendship in the marriage. And a man wants to be friends. They are not just friends. You don't want. We want to get. We're not talking about the friend zone and dating. We're talking. He wants to be able to open up to you and feel safe doing so. But if you keep rejecting him, again, when you reject him, you're breaking that bond. All right. He may get depressed. You keep rejecting him, and it's just a bad thing for him, and it'll start to affect him, and he might get depressed about it. When I say depressed, I'm not talking about like a clinical depression or something. I'm talking about he gets depressed. He feels low about his relationship, about his marriage. He's at work. He's going to come home, and he's going to be like, I got to come back to this woman who just keeps rejecting me. All she does is just spend time with the kids. She's always watching TV or on Facebook. She finds time to do this and do that. But I get left out in the doghouse, and that's depressing. Okay? All right. Another thing that consequence of husbands being rejected by their wives is that he gets frustrated and angry. All right? Frustration and anger. Yeah. All right. I don't want to go too much into it because this is serious. He may respond. He might respond violently to constantly being rejected. Oh, yeah, it could get pretty violent. Now, I'm not saying that he might hit her, but he might start getting angry and have angry outbursts. And then she might get angry because he's angry, and it just, okay. All right, another thing is he has a stressful marriage. Stress. And stress is not a good thing in your life. There are many symptoms to stress, and stress can increase your risk of certain medical conditions like heart attack. You can have headaches and so forth and so on. Read the article for more details about that. I don't want to get into that, but it increases his stress. Right. Another thing is that he becomes indifferent and resentful of his wife and his marriage. And if let's say she's always spending time with the kids, but just leaves him out in the cold. She doesn't make time for him. All right. He may start resenting the kids. Let's say she is really hyped and pumped about her job, and she's doing all this stuff for her job. She brings work home. She goes to work on the weekend and all that kind of stuff. She's really looking for the promotion, and she loves what she does on the job. But she gives no time for her husband, and he feels left out in the cold. Guess what? He's going to start resenting her job. Okay, so, and resentment is a silent killer in any relationship. Okay, so you want to avoid resentment. But if you keep rejecting your husband, eventually he may start to resent you, okay? And his marriage. He may start thinking, man, if I hadn't married her, I'd probably be happy now. Okay? All right. Loss of commitment. Now we're getting down a dark road. If the man starts losing commitment, again, you've got to get the ebook. What happens to love and marriage, because I talk about commitment. I talk about the different types of love, romantic love, and commitment love. And what happens when a marriage it just keeps getting bad and bad and bad and worse, how commitment begins to wane. You got to get that ebook, all right? myhopeandmarriage.com. Get the ebook, all right? All right, anyway, he has lost a commitment. In other words, he starts giving up on his marriage. He's no longer committed to the relationship. You can see where that could possibly go, right? All right. His wife he's no longer committed to her or the relationship. So therefore, he might bind to something else or someone else. Okay. Which could lead to another consequence of rejecting your husband consistently is infidelity. He gets another woman. He finds another woman that makes him feel good, makes him feel important, listens to what he has to say, values what he has to say. You know what I'm saying? And we talked about that early. A wife who listens to her husband, I'm not talking about a wife that just does whatever her husband says. If you don't agree with your husband, you say something. Be respectful, all right? But you take what he says seriously, all right? And of course, the consequences of consistent rejection of your husband, which could take place over years and decades, is that he finally just wants to give up. He gets a divorce. He wants a divorce. I'm going to try my luck somewhere with somebody else because you make me feel bad, and I've been feeling bad for 10, 20, 30 years or whatever, all right? So those are some serious consequences to rejecting your husband consistently over the years, all right? Now, the solution for that is, first of all, nurture the marriage. Nurture your marriage. Work on your marriage. Prioritize your marriage. People don't do that. Prioritize your marriage. You prioritize your job. People prioritize their church activities or what have you. Prioritize your marriage, doggone it. Prioritize your spouse. Men, prioritize your wife. Wives, prioritize your husband. All right? They're important. Have regular, intimate communications. Have intimate conversations with each other. Or determine what is truly happening in the marriage. You feel rejected, but what is really happening? All right? And that's again where communication will come into play. I'm just running down those lists. Go to the website, read the article because it gets into a little more detail. Don't blame your wife. Don't play the blame game. This article, I originally wrote this article maybe a year or two ago, and it's amazing. There, I got some responses that, basically saying that I'm blaming the wife. I'm not blaming the wife. Wives reject their husband. Some wives reject their husband. They may not realize that they're rejecting their husband, but they're doing it. All right, the husband may not speak up, so she may not realize it, so she keeps doing the same thing over and over and over. And then one day he blows up. I want a divorce. Or he just gets so angry, he just explodes. He has an eruption. Okay? So don't blame your wife. Just find out what's going on and fix it. Okay? Fix it. Blaming each other for problems in the marriage is counterproductive anyway. Unless it's really obvious, like you're just cheating on your wife all the time. So I wouldn't blame her for being angry. All right, but anyway, don't blame your wife for the condition of your marriage if you're having a stressful time at it and she's rejecting you, or you're perceiving her as rejecting you. She may not be. All right, improve yourself. Maybe she's rejecting you because you always stink. I mean, come on. Maybe you don't groom. Maybe you just got a bad attitude and she just don't want to be bothered with that. Maybe she's a very positive person and you're like a black hole of emotion. You just suck the life out of everything because you're so negative. And maybe she just don't want that. Maybe she never saw that when you were dating or whatnot. All right, so improve yourself. Make yourself more desirable. Work out, get in shape, eat right, comb your hair, dress right. Don't just have bags on or whatever. All right? Okay. Evaluate your behavior. Again, maybe your wife is responding to something that you're doing. Maybe she's, quote, rejecting you because you treat her bad. You treat her badly. Maybe she doesn't like the way you talk to her or whatever the case would be. Evaluate your own behavior. And again, communications in marriage will really bring this kind of stuff out. Honey, I don't really like when you say such and such and such. I don't know why when you do such and such, it really hurts my feelings. Oh, really? A lot of times things happen because of misunderstandings. All right, so to avoid misunderstandings, talk to each other, intimate conversations. And you gotta have on the big boy pants or the big girl pants. In other words, you can't have your emotions just teetering on your shoulders, because sometimes your spouse may say something to you, or your wife may say something to you in this context of this video, this article. Your wife may say something to you about yourself that you don't want to hear. All right, but take it as it is, and think about it. Maybe she's misunderstanding something. Maybe she has a different perspective, and you deal with it. Okay? Seek God's wisdom. Always seek God's wisdom for any situation in your life, especially your marriage. And above all, work on your marriage. Work to make it better. Work to have a happy marriage. Don't assume it's just going to happen just because you loved each other and you went down the aisle and said, I do. No. You got to work on it like anything else. If you want green, nice, healthy lawn, guess what? You got to work on it. Somebody's got to work on it. But you have to work on your marriage if you want a good marriage. All right. So those are the consequences of wives rejecting their husbands. And like I said, it's not so much that the wives are just get out of here. It's just that certain things that she does are interpreted as rejection. And if you communicate, see, if a couple communicated with each other regularly, intimate conversations, all these things will just come out in a wash. They'll just come up and they'll deal with them and it'll be gone. Oh, I know my wife doesn't like when, such and such and such and such. I remember when I first got married, my wife used to, slap. And I hate that. That's like a trigger for me. That's like a trigger to just start swinging. So I told her, don't slap me. Don't slap me, or I'm liable to hit you back. Okay. I'm serious. You got to be honest. with each other. And it's good to be honest with your wife. If she's rejecting you, talk to her about it. Which means, wives, you should be open, honest, and take what he has seriously. Don't just brush it off or blow it off. Because if he goes out there and cheats on you, then all of a sudden he's the bad guy. Well, he cheated on you because you didn't respond to him, probably, unless he's just a deadbeat. Okay. All right, but anyway, I just wanted to bring this article because this article's got a lot of traffic and on my website. So I decided to make this video to accompany it, and I'm going to be providing a lot more resources in this general, topic, because evidently it's a very serious topic. When you go to different like forums and whatnot, you see this all the time. Guys are really frustrated because their wives just diss them. Their wives just reject them. Their wives just push them off to the side. They're going off on their merry life, and he's suffering. And it shouldn't be there. When you get married, you should have a happy marriage, and you can do it if you just work together. I don't care where your marriage is, what the condition of your marriage is in right now. You can make it better, but it takes one. It only takes one to get things. It takes two to. Here's my saying: it takes two to tango, but it only takes one to get it started. Somebody's got to initiate it, all right, and then the other one should respond. If you really are wanting to make your marriage a happy and fulfilling one, you both, husband and wife, should work together. Even though one may start it, get things started, maybe both of you are clueless that you're supposed to work on your marriage, but at least one should get enlightened and say, you know what, we should work on our marriage. And you start educating yourself by books, tapes, whatever. Go through My Hope in Marriage, because there's a plethora of information there, and work on your marriage. And don't reject your husband. And if you're being rejected by your wife, tell her. She might not even know it. All right. Well, anyway, this is Reggie, or William R. Cunningham, of My Hope in Marriage. Visit us on the website at www.myhopeinmarriage.com. All right. All right. And get that ebook, What Happens to Love in Marriage. What happens to love in marriage? You have got to get that ebook, because a lot of the things that came up in this article, this video alone, is covered in detail in that ebook. All right. Well, until next time, be blessed and have a happy marriage.